AITA for stereotyping lesbians. I-34F only listened to 2 podcasts, one of which is this one. I'd love to hear it. In both pods, the hosts have mentioned or alluded to the fact that a good percentage of their audience base are lesbians. Well, I was just at brunch with 5 other girlfriends, one of which is a lesbian, Becca, and another is bi, Tiff, and currently in a relationship with a woman who's a lesbian. Tiff brought up a new podcast she'd been binging. As the conversation continued, Becca and Tiff brought up podcasts as their podcast and shared their ratings. In a lighthearted, almost joking tone, I said, quote, I think lesbians just really like podcasts. Becca was mid-sip and choked out a sputter laughter. But Tiff scowled. Tiff laid into me, stating it was offensive for me to cast stereotypes on lesbians. I eventually mumbled sorry, and Becca shrugged, indicating it wasn't a big deal and changed the subject. Tiffany remained cold toward me through the rest of brunch. AITA for stereotyping lesbians.
I mean, it seemed like a harmless, like, we're in good company, we're friends here.
Yeah.
It also isn't like a negative stereotype.
Yeah.
Lesbians like podcasts. I mean, it's... I think that if someone listens to podcasts, they like to be informed.
There's also just a podcast for everything. So it's kind of like, I guess, guys named Danny like TV.
Yeah.
Podcasts are that now.
Yeah, I mean, that's funny, but I don't really think, I mean, I think to see Tiff's side a little bit, you know, there is an othering aspect here. This felt within reason, I have to say, but, you know, like when people are kind of pointing out the other, especially a straight person, it's kind of like, maybe just stick to your thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I always think that's a lot funnier. Like, I hate when straight comics talk about gay guys. I'm like, shut up. Uh-huh. But if they're like, as a straight guy, you know, I'm on a, you know, that to me is, I'm like, yeah, that's fair. That's your perspective.
Also, this was her first time meeting Tiff.
First time meeting her.
So I think there's that at play too. Tiff doesn't know who you are. She doesn't know, like, I don't know, your biases, your judgments and stuff like that. So I think if she made that joke, 5th time hanging out, 4th time hanging out, I don't know. And there's already a level of like, I know you're for me. I know you're not othering me.
Yeah.
I know you.
Yeah.
We can make these jokes. But yeah, first meeting, it's a little hard.
I honestly want to roll back what I said before after listening to what you said.
Okay.
Because even if a stereotype is positive, it's still a stereotype. You know, I was in school, I'm half Asian, and I was really good at math. And my teacher said, oh, you must be good at math because you're Asian. Yeah. And that's a positive stereotype, but it's still insulting. So if she sees it as insulting, even if it seems like it's positive, it doesn't matter.
That's a great point.
It's othering somebody.
Yeah. It's othering. It's also, I just saw a Joe Rogan clip where he like references the stereotypes of like black people liking fried chicken and watermelon. And he's like, well, is that offensive? Everybody likes those things, which is like the hackiest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And it made me think about how, you know, a stereotype also seeks to oversimplify. And that's part of what's ugly about it.
Sure.
It's like, you know, you're sort of being like, even with even if they are positive, it's kind of like, oh, Asian, good at math, and that's all you are. Interesting. I'm observing. There's something cold and detached about it. That's just kind of, I guess it really does come back to othering, where it's like, I'm not that, but you are, and I know what you people are. You know, like, even if it's positive.
Also, really quick, the joke just really sucked. Because like, you know, this is like in defense of Tiff. The joke also sucks.
It wasn't a great joke.
You like podcasts. Yeah, I guess you like podcasts. I'm like,
lesbians like podcasts.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
So the joke really sucks. It's a stupid joke.
It's a stupid joke. I think familiarity is a big thing. For instance, you know, and like, look, some people do. I have a friend who's a little bit Gen X-y, you know, and I always see him at the park. He's a black dude. And I just have a running bit. Like, we laugh every time. Or if I see him, I'll pretend to be on the phone. I'll be like, 911, there's a black man at the park. this is kind of funny because it's like, the whole,
You know each other.
yeah, we know each other. And like, I know his sense of humor. Like we've literally worked on jokes together. So like, I feel like that's a part of this because some people do have this humor. But I think where it gets dicey and where all the trouble kind of starts, especially with like, fucking boomers, it's like, yeah, if you're like, I'm not comfortable being around these jokes, but if that's something that they're into, sure, that's something they're into. And that's okay because he's a black dude. So if he's comfortable with it, that's it. That's fine. And he'll make jokes like that to me. But like for like a random white person, it's like the classic, like, well, my black friend's cool with it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's kind of not relevant though. You don't know if I'm cool with it, and you're kind of not the arbiter of if that's cool.
And also, your black friend, who you probably just made up, is not every black person.
I will know, and I would. Oh my god, I would never make that joke to someone I don't know. Oh my god, they would think I meant it.
I would love to see.
They would think I meant it. So I kind of do feel, let's see, we've got some comments. Exploded Orchestra. This reminds me of a friend who asked if all gay people love dinosaurs because all the gay people she knew did. I mean, it is kind of a funny premise, but again, it's going into this thing of like, I know who you people are. It's like, no, bro, like that's ridiculous. You're like being.
You also sound really stupid.
Right? Right? We got Bowbody 42069. Some people are just too sensitive, not the asshole. We live in a world where people jump at any opportunity to throw an ism at somebody. Like this isn't a big deal.
It's too dismissive.
I think there's this weird thing where people get offended that you got offended at something they said.
Mm-hmm.
It's this feeling now, this cancel culture feeling where you think, you're taking away my freedom to say anything I want about a group of people. And I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be saying that.
Yeah.
And somehow they take that personally. Like we're saying that they are a bigot or we're saying that they're a racist. No, we're just saying that it's not your place to say this.
It's not your place.
And they get, it's weird to get offended by someone else being offended by you.
It's weird.
Right.
To get offended by someone else getting offended. Sorry, one more time.
It's weird to be offended by someone else being offended by you.
Okay. Yeah, like it's like they mirror it back.
Right. Like if that's their experience, then why are you offended by that?
Yeah.
Like if they felt hurt by that, they felt hurt by that. Why are you pissed about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cheap. Shallow. If you're comfortable and you guys all laugh about it, that's fine. But I think this is a little too comfortable. OP, I'm sorry. ATA for stereotyping lesbians. It's soft, but yeah, I think you can't be doing your lesbian material if you're a non-lesbian. Build the trust, and they'll know there's no malice there. It's just a throwaway joke.
And make it a better joke. I think it was
develop
funny.
the joke. Explain to us why lesbians like podcasts. That's what I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
we just, as comedians, we don't like the joke.
Or because I'm like, what podcast were they talking about? If they were lesbian podcasts produced, created by lesbians, and you were like, wow, lesbians like lesbian podcasts. Don't say words anymore,
Yeah, that seems obvious.
What I need to know is what is the second podcast she listens to besides this one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's going to say it's Joe Rogan. And I'm like, okay, you're the asshole.
She's like, I like that. I like what he said about the watermelon. That was a good man. What the fuck? No, she didn't. OP's a good person. It was a look, I've done, I actually, on one of our live shows, I made, the joke of like, I identify as a whatever, and it's so fucking hack. It's the one joke. And I made it at a party. And I didn't realize it was the same thing where I was like, oh, everybody knows that I have no malice in this joke, but they didn't know me.
Right.
And I did the joke of like, oh, I went to Arizona State, but I identify as a Harvard student. And it bombed in the audience. I mean, I was telling it as like this bombed at a party. And and I was like, yeah, like you can't, that joke is so hack now, but like it's they don't know. Like if I'm with someone, they don't know that I'm not being shitty.
If you had jokes leading up to that made it clear that like,
right,
hey, I'm for you. I don't actually hate people who. But yeah, if that's your opening bit, it's kind of like, okay, is he gonna go right or left?
Right,
And
nothing makes a joke funnier than a long preamble of. I just want you guys to know I'm not a bad person.
Yeah.